AITA for not letting my sister and her fiancé stay with me after they got kicked out of their apartment. So, to give a little background, I'm 29F and my sister, 27F, is a few years younger than me. We've had a fairly close relationship for the most part, though we've always had some differences. I've always been the more responsible, level-headed one, and my sister tends to be more impulsive and, frankly, a bit reckless with her life choices. A few months ago, my sister and her fiancé, Chris, 28M, got into a huge fight with their landlord over unpaid rent. According to her, it wasn't entirely their fault. They had fallen behind on a couple of payments, and when Chris lost his job earlier this year, things got worse. I don't know all the details, but I do know that my sister didn't really seem to have a plan for getting back on track financially, and it's been a bit of a mess for a while now. Eventually, they were evicted. They moved their stuff into a storage unit, and I thought that was the end of it. I had just gotten back from a work trip when my sister called me out of nowhere, sounding frantic. She told me that they had nowhere else to go and asked if they could stay with me for a while. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment by myself. It's small, but I've made it work. My first instinct was to help her out because, she's my sister. But at the same time, I was a little reluctant. I knew that she and Chris could be a handful. They tend to not respect boundaries and often take advantage of people's generosity. I asked her for more details about their situation, and she gave me the same story: eviction, no other options, looking for a new place, etc. I was still hesitant, so I told her I need to think about it and discuss it with my boyfriend, Matt, 30M, who also stays over at my place sometimes. Matt and I have been together for almost 2 years, and we're pretty serious, so his opinion matters to me. When I brought up to Matt, he immediately said he was uncomfortable with the idea. He didn't mind helping out, but he was worried about them overstaying their welcome, causing tension, and just disrupting the peace we've built in the apartment. I completely understood where he was coming from. Matt values our privacy, and I do too, but I also didn't want to leave my sister high and dry. After talking it over for a while, Matt and I agreed that we'd set some very clear boundaries if we decided to let them stay. I called my sister back and told her that she and Chris could stay with us for a few weeks, but only under certain conditions. I laid out the following rules. They would have to contribute to rent and utilities. I wasn't going to let them freeload when I was already helping them out. They would have to contribute to rent and utilities. I wasn't going to let them freeload when I was already helping them out. They would need to be actively looking for a new place and show us evidence of their search. They would need to be actively looking for a new place and show us evidence of their search. They needed to keep their stuff in their own room and not clutter up the common areas. They needed to keep their stuff in their own room and not clutter up the common areas. No parties, and they had to be considerate of noise, especially since Matt and I work from home. No parties, and they had to be considerate of noise, especially since Matt and I work from home. Lastly, they had to respect our space, meaning no unannounced visits from friends or family without prior approval. Lastly, they had to respect our space, meaning no unannounced visits from friends or family without prior approval. At first, my sister seemed to understand. She said they would follow the rules and were just in a tough spot. I told her to come by for a visit so we could talk face-to-face and get a better feel for how they might fit into our living space. This is where things started to go downhill. When my sister and Chris came over, I immediately noticed that Chris wasn't on board with any of the rules I'd set. He was visibly annoyed by the fact that I wanted them to pay rent and contribute to utilities. He told me he didn't think it was fair to charge them rent when they were already going through a rough time. I reminded him that I wasn't offering them a free ride, and I was doing this out of family obligation. I also emphasized that if they stayed here, I expected them to at least make some effort to help with their situation. Chris didn't respond well to this and started arguing with me. He said something along the lines of, "It's not our fault we got evicted." And I tried to explain that I understood it wasn't all their fault, but at the same time, they needed to take responsibility for their part in it. The conversation got tense, and my sister tried to mediate, but it felt like the more we talked, the more Chris resisted. After that night, they didn't stay over, and I figured it was over. But then, my sister called the next day, crying and apologizing. She said they didn't have anywhere else to go, and Chris had calmed down, but still wasn't thrilled about the conditions I set. She begged me to reconsider and let them stay for a while until they could find something more permanent. I felt bad, but I stuck to my guns. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable letting them stay if Chris wasn't on board with the rules. She said that wasn't fair and that she had no other options. I told her I understood, but that this was a decision I had to make for myself and my living situation. The conversation ended on a sour note. A few days later, my sister posted a lengthy status on Facebook about how family isn't supposed to abandon you when you're in need and how it was disheartening to feel like I didn't want to help them. I was pissed because she was airing our private family stuff to the public, and it made me look like the bad guy. Several of our mutual friends and family members commented, with some agreeing with me, saying that I was within my rights to set boundaries, while others sided with her, saying that family should be there for each other no matter what. Now, I'm feeling conflicted. I know I wasn't wrong to set boundaries, and I still don't feel comfortable letting them stay here, especially with Chris not respecting the conditions. But my sister is still upset, and our relationship feels strained. I'm wondering if I made the wrong decision by not helping them more, or if I was justified in putting my needs first. AITA for not letting my sister and her fiancé stay with me? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for telling my parents I won't pay for my sister's wedding after they demanded I contribute more money. I, 26F, have a younger sister, Sarah, 24F. We've always had a good relationship, though we've never been super close, and the dynamic between us has been mostly civil with the occasional disagreement, like normal siblings. But things started to get rocky when she got engaged to her fiancé, Kyle, 27M, about a year ago. The drama all started when my parents began discussing the wedding plans. From the start, Sarah and Kyle decided to have a big wedding. I'm talking full-blown, expensive event, think destination wedding, over-the-top venue, fancy catering, the works. It was clear that they wanted this to be a celebration to remember, and they were going all out. Sarah mentioned to me early on that they would be saving up for it, but she also made it clear that my parents would be helping with a significant chunk of the cost, and she hoped I would help out too. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, especially since I had my own savings goals and wasn't in a place to throw around money freely, but I told her I'd be happy to help, just not as much as she was hoping. Fast forward to a few months later, and my parents started getting involved. My dad and mom were constantly talking about the wedding, and while I understood it was important, it felt like they were more invested in it than Sarah was. They kept asking me if I could chip in more money, even though they had already given Sarah and Kyle several $1,000s to cover the venue and catering. At first, I contributed $5,000 to help with the overall budget, and I thought that would be enough. I'm not rich by any means, but I was willing to do what I could. The issues began when my parents casually mentioned that the wedding was going over budget. Apparently, Sarah and Kyle had added a bunch of extra features like a live band, fancy decorations, and some pricey favors for the guests. And because of all these upgrades, my parents said they needed me to pitch in more so they wouldn't have to cover the whole difference themselves. They hinted that my contribution of $5,000 was nice, but they were hoping for closer to $10,000 from me. I was honestly shocked. I told my parents that I couldn't afford that much. I had other financial responsibilities, including student loans, rent, and saving up for my own future. I also explained that I didn't want to go beyond what I had already contributed because I didn't feel comfortable giving up more money when I wasn't even asked to help with the planning or logistics of the wedding. I've been supportive in other ways, but I hadn't been consulted on anything, and honestly, it felt like I was being treated as a walking checkbook rather than as a sister. That's when things started to get tense. My mom started telling me how important it was for us to support Sarah and how much this wedding meant to her. She said that Sarah had always dreamed of this day, and I should want to help make it a reality. My dad was more blunt. He told me that weddings were expensive, and it wasn't just Sarah's dream, it was the family's dream, and I should contribute to make sure it didn't fall apart. It felt like they were guilt-tripping me, into giving more. I stood firm in my decision, but then Sarah called me. She was upset, asking why I wasn't more supportive of her wedding. She said she understood that weddings were expensive, but she was frustrated that I wasn't doing more to help with the financial burden. She told me that I was ruining her special day by not stepping up. I told her that I had already contributed $5,000 and I wasn't going to be pressured into giving more than I could afford. She didn't take that well and ended up hanging up on me. Things got even worse after that. The group chat with my parents and Sarah was filled with messages of disappointment and frustration. They all said I was being selfish and that family should help each other, especially during such a major life event. I started feeling like the bad guy in this situation, especially when my dad said, "You don't get to be part of the family's joy if you won't contribute to the family's responsibilities." In the weeks leading up to the wedding, my parents asked again for more money, and I once again refused. They told me that if I wasn't going to help financially, I couldn't expect to be included in any of the wedding events or even attend the ceremony. I felt like I was being punished for not being willing to go beyond my means, and I was starting to wonder if I was truly the one in the wrong. Was I really ruining my sister's wedding by standing firm? I had to make a decision. The day before the wedding, I told my parents I wouldn't be attending unless the pressure to contribute more money was lifted. My mom was livid, and Sarah refused to speak to me. I felt awful, but I knew that I couldn't compromise my financial security just to make others happy. So I stayed home that weekend and missed the wedding. My family went ahead without me, and I didn't hear from anyone except a few angry texts from Sarah, calling me selfish and greedy. A couple of weeks later, my parents called and told me that Sarah would be taking a break from our relationship for a while. They said I should have been more understanding of her situation and that she was hurt by my refusal to contribute more money. I couldn't understand how something that was supposed to bring us closer had pushed me further away from everyone. Now, I'm feeling conflicted. I know I didn't have to help out to the extent they wanted, but I also feel like maybe I could have done more. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and helped her make her wedding day perfect. But then again, it's not like they ever asked me if I wanted to be involved in planning or how I felt about the budget. It was all assumed that I would just throw money at it. So, AITA for refusing to contribute more money to my sister's wedding and choosing not to attend because of the pressure? Could I have handled it differently? Or am I justified in standing my ground? AITA for telling my brother he can't bring his girlfriend to our family reunion after she ruined my wedding? I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I've been married for about 6 months now. My brother, James, 28, has been dating his girlfriend, Lena, 26, for about a year. They've had a pretty serious relationship, but there have been some red flags with her. I didn't think much of it first, but after my wedding, I started to really see the bigger picture. My wedding was a huge deal for me. It was a dream come true, and everything was supposed to be perfect. We had a gorgeous venue. All our family and friends were there, and the ceremony went exactly as planned. I had my bridesmaids, including my sister and a few close friends. The day was all about celebrating love, family, and a new chapter in my life. However, Lena was a major problem at the wedding. The issue started during the rehearsal dinner. She made a scene when she realized she wasn't sitting next to James, who was placed closer to the bridal party. We wanted the couple to sit together, and then the other guests as they came. She tried to move herself next to him at the dinner table, but James told her to calm down, that it wasn't a big deal, and that it was a seat assignment. Then, at the actual wedding, things got worse. We had a pretty big wedding with an open bar. During the reception, Lena got very drunk very fast. It was supposed to be a fun party, but Lena started going off about how my wedding wasn't real, that it was too fancy for her, and how my dress was way too much for such a simple ceremony. I brushed it off at first, but she kept talking loudly, making other guests uncomfortable. It seemed like she was just trying to get attention, and it worked because a lot of people noticed. My cousin pulled me aside at one point and told me that Lena had made some rude comments about my dress being too Princess Y and how I was acting like a little girl playing dress up. I was furious, but I didn't want to let it ruin the day, so I just kept my distance. The breaking point came during the speeches. My best friend was giving a heartfelt toast about how happy she was for me and my husband and how she's been with me through everything. Lena, who was sitting at a table near the back, started heckling her. It was subtle at first, but then she started yelling things like, "You don't even know her that well. What do you know about love?" And "She's only getting married because she's scared of being alone." It was beyond awkward, and I could see my husband and my family getting uncomfortable. When James finally realized how disruptive Lena was being, he tried to get her to leave, but she threw a tantrum and refused. She kept shouting that everyone was judging her, and how she was just telling the truth. She even started arguing with my mom, saying my wedding was pretentious and that my family was acting like they were better than everyone else. I had enough at that point and pulled James aside. I told him that I didn't want her at my wedding anymore and asked him to take her home. James was really angry with me. He said it wasn't fair to kick her out over a few comments and that I was being overdramatic. But honestly, I was so upset I couldn't keep my calm. He tried to defend her, saying that she was just drunk and upset, but I had already lost my patience. We argued for a while, and I eventually told him that if he couldn't respect me on my wedding day, then maybe he wasn't really considering how his girlfriend's behavior was affecting me or my family. After that night, I didn't speak to him for a few days. I needed time to process the whole ordeal. Eventually, James reached out to apologize, but he also asked me to apologize to Lena for kicking her out. I said I wasn't going to apologize because I had every right to remove someone who was causing a scene at my wedding. Now, here's the part that's complicating things even more. We are having our family reunion in a couple of weeks, and James told me that he wants to bring Lena. I have told him several times that I don't want her there, considering the way she behaved at my wedding, but he's insisting that I'm being unreasonable. He says I should get over it, and that it's unfair to keep holding on to this one incident. He's been very persistent about it, even telling me that it's a family event and I can't dictate who comes. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm really torn. On one hand, I don't want to cause a rift with my brother, but on the other, I feel like if I let Lena come, I'm just letting her get away with the terrible behavior she exhibited at my wedding. I don't think she deserves a second chance, especially when she didn't apologize and doesn't seem to care how her actions affected me or my family. I've been pretty clear with James that if he brings her, I won't attend the reunion. I've explained that it's not just about the wedding, but about the pattern of disrespect I've seen. But now my family is divided. Some agree with me and say that Lena doesn't deserve to be there if she hasn't apologized, while others say I'm being petty and that I need to let go of the past. I'm really starting to feel like I'm being the unreasonable one, especially since I've been the one to make this a big deal. AITA for telling my brother that he can't bring his girlfriend to the reunion after what happened at my wedding. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law bring her dog to our wedding. So I, 28F, am getting married in a few weeks to my fiancé, 30M, and we've been working hard to make our wedding day special for us and our families. It's been a stressful few months, but everything is coming together. However, a situation has recently come up that's making me question if I'm being unreasonable. My sister-in-law, 34F, is, well, let's just say she's a bit of character. We've always had a somewhat strained relationship, mostly because of her boundary issues and her tendency to make everything about herself. She can be very nice when she wants to be, but often she'll do things that seem out of line and expect everyone to just go along with it. Now, the issue at hand, my sister-in-law has a dog. The dog is her emotional support animal, ESA, and she takes it everywhere. We've all known about the dog for years, and honestly, I'm not a fan. The dog is fine in small doses, but it's overly excitable and, to be honest, not well trained. It barks at everyone, jumps up on people, and just generally makes a mess of things. She insists that the dog has helped her with some personal struggles, and while I respect that, I don't think it gives her a free pass to bring it to every single event. A couple of weeks ago, she reached out to me and asked if she could bring the dog to the wedding. She explained that the dog is a support animal and that she really needs him there to feel comfortable. My initial response was a firm no. The venue is a fancy place, and I know they have a strict no pets policy. Plus, I just don't think a wedding is the right environment for a dog that isn't trained to be in public places for extended periods. The dog would be a distraction at best and a safety hazard at worst, especially with so many people milling about. When I told her no, she got really upset. She said that it would ruin her experience at the wedding if she couldn't have her dog there, and that it's not fair that I'm asking her to choose between her emotional support and being part of our special day. I explained that we planned a formal event, and there are other accommodations we can make for her, like a quiet space to take a break or have some time away from the crowd, but the dog just couldn't be there. She didn't take this well. She said I was being insensitive and heartless, and that I was prioritizing a wedding over family. She also mentioned that her therapist advised her that the dog is a crucial part of her mental health, and I should understand that. I wasn't sure what to say to that, but I stuck to my decision. She then said she would think about whether or not she would come to the wedding at all if the dog wasn't allowed. This made me feel like she was trying to guilt me into changing my mind, which didn't sit well with me. My fiancé has been a little more diplomatic about the situation. He says he can understand her perspective, but also thinks that it's unreasonable to expect a dog at a wedding, especially considering how much time, money, and effort we've put into planning it. He agrees that it's a public event and that the dog could cause issues. He's also worried about how the dog might interact with our guests, some of whom have allergies or phobias. But here's where I'm stuck. I don't want to be the villain here. I know my sister-in-law struggles with her mental health, and I don't want to be seen as unsympathetic or dismissive of her needs. At the same time, I feel like there's a limit to how much we should accommodate her at the expense of everyone else. We've worked really hard to create an event that reflects both our personalities and is comfortable for everyone, but it's not a dog-friendly environment. She hasn't spoken to me since our last conversation, and now I'm wondering if I've made the wrong call. Should I have been more understanding and let her bring the dog? Or am I justified in saying no, given the nature of the event and the rules of the venue? So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law bring her dog to our wedding? Edit. A lot of people are asking about my sister-in-law's mental health, and I do want to clarify that I understand she has struggled with anxiety and depression in the past. However, I don't feel like I can simply give in to every request that she makes regarding her emotional support animal, especially when it's something that could impact everyone else at the wedding. It's not that I'm unsympathetic to her struggles. I just don't think it's fair to change the nature of the event for one person, particularly when we've already made efforts to accommodate her in other ways. Also, I should mention that I did try to discuss possible alternatives with her, like arranging a quiet place for her to go if she needs a break, but she wasn't open to that. She insists that the dog needs to be there, which is why I'm sticking to my decision. Thanks again for all the feedback. I really appreciate hearing different perspectives. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding interfere with my own plans, even though it's a big day. So, I, 29F, have a sister, 27F, who's getting married in a few weeks. We've always had a bit of a complicated relationship, but we've managed to keep things civil. She's a bit of a perfectionist, and I've always felt like she's put a lot of pressure on me to conform to her vision of what things should be. That's not to say I haven't supported her through everything. I have. But there's always been a bit of an underlying tension. The issue started when my sister and her fiancé, let's call him Alex, picked their wedding date. They settled on a date that's important to them, an anniversary of when they got engaged, which makes sense. The problem is that the wedding is scheduled for the same weekend as a major work conference I've been planning to attend for over a year. The conference is a huge deal for my career. It's where all the top people in my field will be, and there are presentations, networking events, and workshops that I've been looking forward to for months. I've already booked flights, hotel, and paid for the ticket in full, which is a significant amount of money. When I first found out about the conflict, I didn't think it would be a big deal. I assumed I could attend the wedding and then fly to the conference afterward or something. But when I told my sister about the situation, she was not happy. She said she would be devastated if I didn't attend her wedding, and she made it clear that she considered the conference to be an inconvenience. At first, I thought she was joking, but after a couple of conversations, it was clear she was serious. She started sending me messages with all sorts of guilt-tripping tactics, including reminding me that she was always there for me and had supported me through so much. I felt like she was trying to make me feel selfish for prioritizing my career over her wedding day. Now, I get it. A wedding is a big deal, and I know it's something she's been dreaming of. But I've been working hard to get where I am in my career, and this conference could open doors for me in a way that her wedding, while important to her, just can't. My parents have also gotten involved and they're backing my sister on this one. They say that family should come first, and I shouldn't be so focused on work. I've heard multiple versions of you'll have other opportunities for conferences, but your sister's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I've tried explaining to them that the conference is a once-in-a-lifetime event for me too, especially with where I am in my career. But they just don't seem to understand. They keep saying that it's not like I can't go to another conference, but I can't go to another wedding like this one. I've tried suggesting other solutions, like attending the wedding for a few hours, then flying out to the conference the next morning, but my sister isn't having it. She said that if I don't attend the full wedding and the reception, I might as well not come at all. She says it would be disrespectful to show up only for part of the event. At this point, I'm feeling really torn. I want to be there for her, but I also don't want to sacrifice what could be a career-changing opportunity. To add to the drama, she started telling other relatives that I was being selfish and making everything about me. I didn't want to get into an argument with her in front of the family, so I didn't push back. But I felt blindsided by the way things have escalated. Now it feels like the whole family is putting pressure on me, and I'm starting to feel like the villain in all of this. It's like I'm being asked to choose between my career and my sister's happiness. And no matter what I do, I'm going to let someone down. In the end, I've told her that I'm not going to change my plans for the conference. I'm going to attend the conference as planned and send her a gift and a heartfelt card instead. I've tried to make it clear that I'm not trying to hurt her, but I have to do what's best for my future. Now my sister is ignoring me, and the rest of my family is upset with me. My friends are split. Some think I'm doing the right thing, while others think I'm being too cold. I just feel like I'm being pulled in every direction, and no one is really understanding my position. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding interfere with my career plans, even though it's her big day. I know she's upset, but I honestly don't think I'm being unreasonable. AITA for not letting my sister stay with me after she had a major falling out with our parents. So, a bit of background. I, 29M, have a pretty solid relationship with my parents. Growing up, they were strict but fair. I always felt like we were a close-knit family. My sister, 24F, has always been different. She's kind of the rebellious one in the family, and ever since she was a teenager, she's had a rocky relationship with our parents. She'd constantly clash with them over their rules and expectations, and while I didn't always agree with how they handled things, I always tried to stay neutral. My sister moved out of our parents' house at 18, got her own place, and did her own thing. Over the years, her relationship with them continued to deteriorate. She dropped out of college, got involved in a lot of risky behavior, and ended up in some pretty toxic friendships. Our parents, naturally, were concerned and tried to intervene, but they just couldn't get through to her. They even tried offering her money to help her get back on track, but she rejected it, saying she didn't need their help. Last month, my sister had a huge blowout with our parents. Apparently, she showed up at their house to ask for some financial help after losing her job. They were hesitant to give her money again, considering her past actions, and they had a heated argument. Things escalated quickly, and my sister ended up storming out of their house, telling them she never wanted to speak to them again. To be honest, I don't even know the full details because she hasn't talked to me about it yet. That's when things got tricky for me. A few days after the argument, my sister called me, asking if she could crash at my place for a while. She didn't give me much explanation beyond, I need a place to stay. I knew she had nowhere else to go since she burned bridges with our parents, and I was hesitant but agreed. I told her she could stay for a few weeks, but that I needed some ground rules. I didn't want her to just come in and take over my space, and I also didn't want her to cause any drama with my girlfriend, 30F, who I live with. Now, let me be clear. My sister and I have a history of clashing personalities. We've had some rough patches growing up, and as adults, we just never really clicked. She's always been super independent, but also incredibly stubborn, and I'm more of a let's keep the peace kind of guy. My girlfriend gets along with my sister just fine, but I knew that having my sister around for an indefinite period would likely cause some tension, especially since my sister is the type who doesn't really care for boundaries. She's the type to borrow things without asking, leave her stuff all over the place, and make herself at home without considering how others feel. The first few days were fine, but soon enough, her behavior started to get on my nerves. She'd leave dirty dishes everywhere, stay up late blasting music, and not clean up after herself. On top of that, she started making passive-aggressive comments about my parents, calling them controlling and manipulative, and even said they don't deserve to see her again after what happened. I told her that I didn't want to get involved in the drama, and that she should focus on figuring out her next steps. She didn't take that well. A week in, I had a long conversation with her. I told her that while I wanted to help her, the way she was behaving was making it difficult for me to continue having her stay here. I asked her to respect my space and be more considerate of the fact that I was living with my girlfriend. She got defensive, saying I was taking my parents' side and that I didn't understand what she was going through. She said she wasn't asking for advice, just a roof over her head. I told her that if she needed a place to stay, she had to follow some basic rules like contributing to the household in some way and being respectful. She told me that wasn't fair and that she didn't owe anyone anything after what our parents did to her. It all came to a head a few days ago when my sister had a friend over without asking. I was in the middle of a work call when I heard loud talking and laughing in the living room. When I went out to ask what was going on, I saw her and her friend sitting on the couch, having some sort of get-together. I asked her to keep it down and that we were trying to keep the apartment quiet for the night. She snapped at me, saying I was being controlling and that she was an adult who didn't need permission for me to have guests. That's when I snapped back. I told her she had overstayed her welcome and that if she wanted to live here, she needed to show more respect. I told her I wasn't going to continue putting up with her behavior and that it was time for her to figure things out on her own. She started crying, calling me heartless and saying that I was no different from our parents. I felt bad, but at the same time, I felt like I was doing the right thing by setting boundaries. She ended up packing up and leaving the next morning, and since then, I haven't heard from her. I've gotten messages from her friends asking why I kicked her out and saying I was being a terrible brother. My parents haven't said anything, but I can tell they know what happened. I've been questioning whether I was too harsh and whether I should have let her stay a little longer. But I also feel like I was justified in wanting to keep my living space peaceful and not let her just continue to take advantage of my kindness. So, AITA for kicking my sister out after she refused to follow basic house rules? I feel guilty, but at the same time, I just can't keep living with someone who disregards boundaries. Any advice or insight would be appreciated. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me? So, I'm in a bit of a family mess, and I'm really torn about whether I'm in the wrong here, but here's what happened. I'm 30, and my sister, Lily, is 28. We've always had a pretty close relationship growing up, but we've had our disagreements like any siblings. Last year, Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, and the wedding planning started right away. Since I've been successful in my career and saved up quite a bit, Lily asked me if I would contribute financially to her wedding, specifically to cover the costs of the venue and some of the catering. She made it clear that she would be very grateful for the help, and I agreed. I thought it would be a great way to support her and be involved in making her wedding day special. Now, here's the background that complicates things. I've been in a long-term relationship with my boyfriend, Evan, for about 6 years. We've had some rocky moments, but overall, we're happy. However, Evan and Lily never really hit it off. There were some small tensions between them, but nothing major until about a year ago, when they got into a huge argument at a family gathering. Evan made a comment about how Lily was being superficial and materialistic in her wedding planning, and she lost her mind. She called him rude, and Evan, in his typical blunt way, called her a bridezilla. Since that argument, they've barely spoken to each other. I should mention that Evan and I aren't planning on getting married anytime soon. We've discussed it, but we're not rushing. Lily knows this, and knows we're not even close to setting a date. But it became a bit of an issue when Lily insisted that Evan wouldn't be welcome at the wedding because she felt that he was disrespectful to her. I tried to explain to her that she needed to move past it because we were family, and this was a big event, but she was firm. She said that if Evan was coming, I wouldn't be invited either, and that was the end of it. She even told me that if I didn't choose her side, we couldn't have a relationship. I didn't take that well, but I really wanted to be there for her on her big day, so I tried to keep the peace. I told her I'd come alone, but that it was hard for me because she was asking me to choose between her and the person I'm in love with. She ignored my feelings and said I was being dramatic. The issue got worse when the wedding planning continued. She kept making snide remarks about Evan to me when I was around her. It got so uncomfortable that I just started avoiding her wedding planning altogether. But a few weeks ago, I found out that Lily had changed the guest list. She told me that she was disinviting me from the wedding altogether because she didn't want any negativity. She said that Evan and I both created a toxic atmosphere, and she couldn't have that at her wedding. I was devastated. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, but no. She was serious. She told me that if I didn't respect her wishes, I wasn't welcome. I felt betrayed, and honestly, I was furious. Here I was, ready to put aside my feelings for the sake of her big day, and she turned around and completely cut me out. This didn't feel like the sister I knew. In retaliation, I called up her wedding planner, the one I'd been in contact with when I offered to help pay for the venue, and I informed them that I was withdrawing my financial support. I told them that I couldn't, in good conscience, fund an event where I wasn't even allowed to be a part of it. The planner was shocked, and Lily was livid when she found out. Now, Lily is calling me every day, saying that I'm ruining her wedding and that I'm being petty and selfish. My parents are also upset, saying I'm being unreasonable and should just get over it and show up for the wedding like any normal person would. They think that my refusal to pay is a petty way of getting back at her for disinviting me. They also say that she's just stressed about the wedding and that I shouldn't take it personally. To make matters even worse, my extended family has started calling me and telling me how disappointed they are in my actions. They all think I'm in the wrong because, according to them, family should come first, and it's just a wedding. Everyone seems to think I should suck it up, pay for the wedding, and be the bigger person. They keep saying that I'm ruining the family dynamic and causing drama for no reason. So, now I'm feeling completely torn. Part of me feels like I should have just sucked it up and let her have the wedding she wanted, but another part of me thinks that I shouldn't have to put myself in this position. Am I the asshole for withdrawing my financial support and refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she disinvited me? I'm really stuck here and would appreciate hearing other people's thoughts on this. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move into our house after she lost her job, even though my wife wants to help her? Okay, so this is a long story, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 31M, have been married to my wife, Claire, 30F, for about 5 years. We got 2 kids, ages 4 and 2, and we live in a decent-sized 3-bedroom house. My wife has a pretty good job in marketing, and I work as an IT consultant, so financially we're comfortable, but we're not rolling in money. We're doing all right, though. Now, Claire's sister, Zoe, 28F, has had a rough time lately. She's been living in a small apartment for the past couple of years, but she recently lost her job in a very sudden and unexpected way. She's been looking for new work, but as anyone knows, the job market isn't exactly booming right now. Zoe has always been a bit, well, let's say carefree when it comes to responsibility. She's the type who tends to rely on others when things get tough, and she's done that before, which has caused some tension between her and other family members. A couple weeks ago, Zoe called Claire and asked if she could move in with us for a while. According to Zoe, it would only be temporary, just until she gets back on her feet and find a new job. Claire immediately said yes, without even discussing it with me first. When I found out, I was shocked. I mean, Zoe isn't exactly the most reliable person. She stayed with us a few times in the past, and it's always been a disaster. She leaves things a mess, doesn't contribute to the household in any meaningful way, and she often ends up making passive-aggressive comments about how we live differently from her. I tried talking to Claire about my concerns. I told her I wasn't comfortable with Zoe moving in again, especially considering how things had gone in the past. Claire got really upset with me. She said that Zoe was family and that we couldn't just turn our backs on her, especially when she was struggling. Claire even brought up that we were lucky to be in a stable situation, and it wouldn't kill us to help out her sister for a while. She kept saying, "It's only temporary," but I didn't believe that. From experience, I knew it wouldn't be just a few weeks. I tried to explain to Claire that while I do sympathize with Zoe's situation, it wasn't just about letting her stay here. It was about the long-term consequences. We have 2 young kids, and our house isn't huge. It would put extra strain on us financially emotionally and mentally. Plus, I didn't want to be constantly walking on eggshells in my own home. The last time Zoe stayed with us, it was a nightmare. She wouldn't clean up after herself, left dishes in the sink for days, and I even caught her complaining about how we raise our kids. And let's not forget, she tends to take advantage of people when she's in a bind. I've seen it before with other family members. She'll promise to help out, but when the time comes, she either forgets or makes excuses. I told Claire I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of Zoe moving in, and that if she wanted to help, maybe we could find her a short-term rental or help her look for work more actively. But Claire wasn't having it. She said I was being cold-hearted and that I needed to be more understanding. She even accused me of being selfish, saying I didn't care about her family and that I was thinking only of myself. This really stung because, honestly, I've always tried to be supportive of Claire's family, even when they've caused trouble. I've gone out of my way to help Zoe in the past, but it's always been a one-sided effort. I'm just tired of it. We've had a few heated arguments about this. Claire's insisting that I'm being unreasonable, but I don't think I am. I feel like I have a right to say no when it comes to who stays in our home, especially given how things have gone before. Claire says I'm not being fair to her sister, and that I'm not being a good husband by not supporting her desire to help family. But I just feel like if Zoe moves in, it's going to create more problems than it's worth. I don't think it's selfish to want peace in my own home, to want stability for our kids, and to avoid unnecessary stress. We're still at an impasse. Claire is pretty upset with me and is telling me I need to get over myself and be more compassionate. I don't want to cause more tension between us, but I'm also standing my ground on this. I really don't want Zoe living with us again. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in, or is Claire right that I'm being unreasonable? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by telling the truth about her fiancé. I, 29F, have a sister, 32F, who recently got engaged to a guy I'll call Mark, 34M. I've always had a bit of a strange relationship with my sister, but we're family, and I've always tried to support her as best as I could. Our family isn't the closest, but we manage. A little background. I've been dating my boyfriend, Matt, 30M, for about 4 years. Our relationship isn't perfect, but we've been through a lot together, and we're both pretty grounded. Matt is an incredibly caring person, but there's one thing about him that he really struggles with. He's had a rough past. He came from a broken home, and while he's worked hard to improve his life, he still struggles with some anger management issues, especially when people don't take accountability for their actions. A few months ago, my sister and Mark came to a family gathering where tensions were already high. My sister has always been the golden child in our family, even though I've had my share of achievements. She's the one who gets attention for everything she does, even when it's minor. Mark seemed perfect at first, charming, funny, and always ready with a smile. But over time, I noticed some things that didn't sit right with me. I'll spare you the minor details, but let's just say I started getting a gut feeling that Mark wasn't all he appeared to be. The first red flag came when Mark started making passive-aggressive comments about Matt's past. Matt had been open about the struggles he's faced growing up, but I noticed Mark would drop little jabs here and there. I brushed it off at first, thinking I was reading too much into it. But as their relationship progressed, I started seeing more of this behavior. Mark belittling my sister when she disagreed with him, acting condescending toward people he didn't deem worthy, and his total lack of empathy for anyone going through a hard time. The thing is, my sister has always been kind-hearted and empathetic, which is why I was so confused by her blind admiration of him. It's like she completely ignored any red flags. Mark would put on a show around family, acting like he was the perfect partner, but I'd hear things from other family members, like how he talked down to people when they weren't around. It made me uneasy. I didn't want to come off as overprotective, but I started worrying. Fast forward to their engagement party. It was a big event, lots of family, lots of friends. It was supposed to be a celebration, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. During the party, Matt and I had a bit of a disagreement with my sister and Mark. Matt said something about how marriage should be built on mutual respect and honesty. My sister immediately defended Mark, and things started to escalate. Mark jumped in, saying something to the effect of, "Not everyone can have a perfect relationship like you two." I didn't like the tone of it, but Matt remained calm. The conversation kept spiraling, and I could see how defensive Mark was getting. The thing is, I've seen Mark lose his cool in private before. He's got a temper, and it's not pretty when he gets upset. That's when I decided to confront him. I don't know what came over me, but I just blurted out, "Mark, we all know you have short fuse. I've seen how you talk down to my sister when no one's around. You belittle her like she's nothing. You might be able to put on a good act, but you're not fooling me. I've seen how you treat people when you think no one's watching." The room went dead silent. I don't think anyone expected me to say it, least of all Mark. He just stood there, shocked, before muttering something like, "You don't know anything about me." My sister started crying immediately, and the whole vibe of the party shifted. People started whispering, and I could see my sister getting more and more upset. In the moment, I didn't care that I had ruined the mood of the party. My sister needed to hear the truth. For months, I had watched her make excuses for his behavior, and I had to speak up. But after that, the fallout was massive. My sister accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship. She said I was just bitter and jealous because she was getting married and I wasn't. She even said I had always been jealous of her perfect life. That really stung, but I still stood my ground. I told her I wasn't jealous. I was concerned about her well-being. Mark's true nature had become glaringly obvious, and I couldn't just pretend it didn't bother me. Family members started taking sides. Some said I had done the right thing, that my sister needed to open her eyes before she walked down the aisle with someone who was clearly toxic. Others, especially our parents, told me I had overstepped and ruined my sister's special day. They said I should have kept my concerns to myself and let her figure it out on her own. My sister hasn't spoken to me since the engagement party. She hasn't called or texted, and anytime I try to reach out, I get nothing. I've tried apologizing for how I handled the situation, but I haven't apologized for what I said. In my heart, I know I was right, but I can't help but feel like I've destroyed the bond one had with her. And now, I'm getting a lot of pressure from other family members to apologize further and make amends. So, AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by telling the truth about her fiancé? AITA for refusing to pay my sister's wedding expenses after she broke a major promise? I, 28M, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who recently got engaged. Ever since she was little, Emily has always had a flair for drama. Growing up, she loved being the center of attention and always had a tendency to make everything about her. Still, we're family, and I've always supported her in any way I could. Over the years, she's gotten into some major financial troubles, particularly with credit card debt and student loans. Emily has always been a bit reckless with money and had to rely on our parents for help more than once. My parents have done their best to support her, but they're not exactly rolling in money either, so it's been a strain on all of us. That's why, when Emily got engaged last year and started planning her wedding, I decided I'd help out too. I have a decent job in tech and make enough to contribute, so I figured it was a good way to show her I cared. From the beginning, Emily kept talking about how she wanted a dream wedding and how important it was for her to have all the details just right. We talked through what she wanted for the venue, the flowers, the food, the photographers, the whole shebang. She made it clear that she didn't want to go overboard with the budget, but that she wanted everything to be beautiful and memorable. One thing that stuck out was when Emily told me she didn't want to ask our parents to pay for everything, and that she didn't feel comfortable asking them for any more financial help. She said that she had her dream wedding planned out, and she'd cover most of it on her own. Still, she acknowledged she could use a little financial help from me, especially for the venue deposit, which was due soon. She was very clear about what she needed and when she needed it, and I agreed to help without hesitation. I agreed to contribute $10,000 for the venue. This was the one thing she seemed truly stressed about, and I thought I was being reasonable since my income was in a place where I could afford it. I trusted that this would be a one-time deal. I'm not rich by any means, but I thought helping her with a wedding this important was worth it. We signed a contract, and I wrote the check. Everything seemed fine until about 3 months later when Emily called me out of the blue to ask if I could cover some more expenses. She explained that they were falling behind on the florist, the caterer, and some other aspects of the wedding that had gone over budget. At first, I thought she was joking, but then I realized she was serious. I asked her how things had gone off track. She admitted that she had spent more on the venue than she had originally planned, then upped the guest list when her fiancé's family asked to invite more people. She'd also picked a more expensive photographer because the other one just didn't have the right vibe. I told her I couldn't give her any more money, especially when she hadn't even asked for my opinion on these changes. I'd already committed a substantial amount, and I didn't feel comfortable constantly bailing her out, especially when it seemed like she hadn't planned properly from the start. Emily got upset and accused me of being selfish. She said she'd been counting on me to help her create the wedding of her dreams, and that I was abandoning her when she needed me most. She said that if I didn't help cover the extra costs, she wouldn't be able to go through with the wedding and it would all fall apart. This felt like emotional manipulation to me, and I told her I couldn't help anymore. I expected her to be upset, but what happened next really threw me for a loop. Emily sent me a series of angry texts and then went on a full-blown social media rant. She posted a story about how her greedy brother had promised to help her make her wedding magical, but then refused to do so when she actually needed it. She posted screenshots of our conversation, painting me as an uncaring villain who didn't support his family. It went viral in our family and among some of our mutual friends, and suddenly everyone was calling me selfish and mean. My parents reached out to me, asking why I wasn't helping Emily more. They said I should have been more understanding, considering how much this wedding meant to her. Some extended family members even reached out, and I felt like I was being ganged up on by people I thought I was close to. My friends, on the other hand, told me that I was right to stand firm and not let Emily use my finances as a crutch. Still, I felt guilty. I was trying to do the right thing, but it felt like no one was on my side. Fast forward to the wedding, and Emily ended up scaling back a lot of her plans. She didn't get the luxury venue she dreamed of, nor the massive guest list, but she still had a decent-sized wedding with a nice ceremony. My parents paid for the difference, and I think they were exhausted from all the back and forth with Emily. At the end of the day, Emily got married, but our relationship has definitely been strained ever since. I feel like I was put in an impossible situation. I didn't want to ruin her day, but I also didn't want to be taken advantage of. Now, she's still not speaking to me, and my parents are walking on eggshells around me. I get it. Weddings are a big deal. But was I really wrong for standing up for myself and saying no after already helping out with such a huge amount? AITA? AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she publicly criticized my fiancé and I? Okay, so this is a bit of a long story, but I need advice because I'm genuinely confused about whether I'm the one being unreasonable. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I recently got engaged to my fiancé, Jake, 30. We've been together for 4 years, and we've been planning a wedding for the last 6 months. Everything was going smoothly until my sister, Emma, 25, started making things difficult. For some context, Emma and I have always had a pretty strained relationship. We get along most of the time, but she can be overly critical and tend to stir up drama. Growing up, she always had to be the center of attention, and when I started dating Jake, she never seemed fully supportive of him. She made some passive-aggressive comments at family events about how he wasn't good enough for me or how he doesn't fit into our family dynamic, but I chalked it up to her being jealous or just feeling left out since I was spending more time with Jake. Things took a turn, though, when we were discussing wedding plans. I'd already asked her to be my maid of honor, thinking it might help smooth things over between us, but that was a mistake. A few weeks ago, we were at a family dinner, and Emma started going on about how she didn't like the venue we picked. She said it was too small and that it looked like a cheap wedding, even though it's honestly a lovely place and well within our budget. I politely told her that I liked it, and we'd already made our decision, but she kept pushing. At some point, she turned to Jake and made a comment about how he didn't seem like he was in it for the long haul. She said, "You're settling for her, aren't you? You could do better." Everyone at the table fell silent, and Jake looked pretty hurt, but he didn't say anything. I was beyond angry, and I told her that she was being rude and inappropriate, but she just shrugged it off, saying I was too sensitive. After that, things just kept escalating. Emma started showing up at wedding-related events like the bridal shower with a sour attitude. And at one point, she even tried to criticize the dress I picked. I wasn't having it anymore, so I told her that if she couldn't support me or my relationship, I didn't want her involved in the wedding at all. She got upset and accused me of overreacting, saying that I was just being dramatic and that she was only trying to help. A few days after the bridal shower, I sent her a message explaining that I was no longer comfortable with her being my maid of honor and that, in fact, I wasn't going to invite her to the wedding. She responded by calling me selfish and petty, saying that I was ruining our family. She also told me that I'd regret it and that I was making a mistake. I felt bad, but I really didn't want her there. I thought I was setting a boundary by saying no to someone who was being disrespectful. Now, my family is divided. My parents think I'm being too harsh, saying that Emma has always been like this and that I should just let it go. They say I regret not having her there and that family is family. Some of my friends agree with me and think that Emma's behavior was unacceptable, but others think I should have tried harder to make amends. I've had people tell me I'm overreacting and that I should just forgive and forget, but I honestly don't feel like I can just brush it off. I feel like I'm being disrespected by someone who's supposed to be one of the closest people in my life, and at the same time, I'm being told that I'm wrong for setting a boundary. I'm getting a lot of pressure from my family to reconsider, but I don't know if I should. It's my wedding, and I just want it to be a day that's about love and celebration, not drama and hurtful comments. I'm just really torn right now, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. So, AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after everything that's happened? Should I try to mend things, or is it better to just move on without her there? AITA for calling out my sister for making my wedding all about her and her new boyfriend? So, to give you some context, I'm getting married in a couple of months to the love of my life, Alex. We've been together for 5 years, and we are both super excited about the wedding. It's been a long time coming, and we've been putting a lot of effort into making sure everything is perfect for our big day. My family is really excited too, especially my sister, Jess. Jess, 32F, and I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship. We weren't super close growing up. She was always more outgoing and attention-seeking, and I was more reserved and focused on my studies. We're just two very different people, and over the years, our relationship has mostly been cordial, but not particularly warm. However, we've never had any major blow-ups or fights. We both just kind of coexisted. Recently, Jess has started dating this guy, Mike, who is, well, let's say he's a bit of a character. He's nice enough, but he's very loud, over the top, and constantly seeks attention. Jess seems really into him, but it's only been a few months, and I haven't had the chance to really get to know him yet. In fact, I've had a hard time keeping up with her whirlwind relationship because, to be honest, it feels like she's more in love with the idea of having a boyfriend than with Mike himself. She's always talking about him, posting about him on social media, and trying to make everything in her life revolve around him. Now, let me tell you what happened. The other day, we were having a family dinner to talk about the wedding details. Jess brought Mike along, even though I didn't specifically invite him. I'm not trying to be rude, but I really wanted the focus to be on me and Alex, since it's our wedding and I wanted to keep it more intimate. Jess and Mike immediately started talking about their plans for the future and how they were thinking of getting a dog together, how Mike's family was going to be coming to our wedding, and just overall monopolizing the conversation. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured they were just excited. But then it started to get weird. Every time I mentioned anything about my wedding, Jess would turn the conversation back to Mike or their future together. She'd talk about how much she loved him and how she couldn't wait for everyone to meet him at the wedding. At one point, she even said, "Mike and I are kind of the stars of the wedding, don't you think?" I was a little stunned, but I brushed it off. However, it got worse the next week when I went to visit my parents to drop off some wedding-related paperwork. Jess was there, and she was talking about the wedding in the same way, except now she was going on about how she and Mike were going to be the center of attention at the wedding. She even said that Mike was planning to give a speech at the reception. I was in complete shock. We hadn't even discussed speeches yet, and there was no way I was going to let someone I barely knew get up and speak at my wedding. I tried to explain this to Jess, but she was acting like I was being unreasonable. She told me that it wouldn't be fair to her and Mike if they didn't get a chance to speak at the wedding since they were such a big part of it. I told her, calmly but firmly, that the wedding was about me and Alex. And while I was happy she was excited about her relationship, I didn't want the focus to shift away from us. I also made it clear that Mike was not invited to give a speech. Jess got upset and told me that I was being selfish. She said that it wasn't fair to her and Mike that I was trying to make everything about my wedding and not let them enjoy the moment too. She even suggested that maybe it would be better if they didn't come to the wedding if I was going to act this way. At this point, I was getting really frustrated, but I tried to keep my cool. I told her that if Mike felt uncomfortable coming to the wedding because he couldn't speak or be the center of attention, then maybe he shouldn't come. This set Jess off even more. She told me I was ruining her happiness and that I was so selfish and controlling. I felt terrible, but I also knew that I had to stand my ground. This is my wedding, and I want it to be a celebration of my relationship, not a platform for Jess and Mike to make it all about them. The situation has escalated since then, and now my parents are involved, try to mediate between us. My mom thinks I'm being too hard on Jess, and my dad is mostly staying out of it. But he did say that I should try to be more understanding because Jess is in a new relationship and might be acting a bit overboard because of that. I just don't understand why Jess can't see that I'm not trying to steal her spotlight. I just want to have a wedding that reflects my relationship with Alex. AITA for sticking to my guns and not letting my sister turn my wedding into a spectacle. So here's the deal. I, 28F, have been friends with Sarah, 29F, for over 10 years. We've been through everything together. High school drama, first loves, breakups, and major life changes. We always talked about how when we got married, we'd be each other's maid of honor. It was something we both agreed on when we were teens, and it never seemed like a big deal, even when we became adults. Sarah got engaged last year, and I was over the moon for her. I immediately started helping her with her wedding plans. I even took a week off work to travel across the country for her bridal shower. Honestly, I felt like her wedding was going to be the highlight of my year because I was so excited for her and I genuinely wanted to be the best maid of honor I could be. But things started to get weird a few months ago. Sarah, for whatever reason, started to get cold toward me. She would cancel plans last minute, and when I asked her what was going on, she would just say she was stressed and needed some space. I figured it was just the wedding planning pressure. Everyone gets a little tense during that time, right? So I tried to give her space, but it felt like she was distancing herself even more. A couple of weeks ago, I went to one of her bridal fittings, and that's when things really took a turn. We were having lunch afterward, and out of nowhere, Sarah just blurted out, "I can't have you as my maid of honor anymore." I was completely blindsided. I asked her why, and she just said, "I don't think you understand the kind of commitment it takes. You've been so distant and unreliable lately." I tried to explain that I've been doing my best to be there for her, but I also had a life to manage, and it wasn't always easy to juggle everything. She cut me off and said that wasn't good enough. She told me that she was replacing me with her cousin, who had more time and energy to actually be supportive. I felt crushed. Sarah was the person I had promised to stand by as her maid of honor for years, and now she was telling me I wasn't good enough for the job. To make matters worse, she didn't just uninvite me from the maid of honor role. She disinvited me from the wedding altogether. She said I could come to the wedding as a guest if I wanted, but the role I had in her life no longer existed. She told me I wasn't part of her big day anymore. I was devastated. I tried to reach out and talk to her, but she ignored my calls and texts. At that point, I just decided to let her go. I was heartbroken, but I didn't want to beg her to keep me in her life. Then, about a week ago, I found out that Sarah's wedding was coming up soon, and she reached out to me asking if I would be willing to help with the costs. Apparently, they were having some financial issues, and she was asking friends and family to chip in. She didn't mention any of the specifics, just that the wedding was a little more expensive than they'd planned. I was furious. She had just disinvited me from her wedding, told me I wasn't important enough to be in her bridal party, and now she was asking me to pay for it? I didn't even know how to respond, so I didn't. I let it sit for a few days and then sent her a message saying, "I'm sorry, but I can't support your wedding financially after everything that's happened." I thought we were closer than this, but clearly I was wrong. She texted back almost immediately and said I was being petty and holding a grudge. She said I should be the bigger person and do the right thing for her, since it was a once-in-a-lifetime event for her. She told me I was acting like I was above her and that real friends would show up and help out, even if there were issues. At this point, I started second-guessing myself. I mean, I don't want to be the person who's unsupportive, but I also feel like she completely cut me out of her life. She made it clear I wasn't important enough to be part of her wedding, and now she wants me to pay for it? Am I being unreasonable by saying no? I've been feeling guilty, but I also don't think I should just brush everything under the rug and act like nothing happened. It's been hard to watch her act like none of this was a big deal while she still expects me to be there for her. I'm trying to figure out if I should have just sucked it up and helped out, or if I was right to stand my ground. AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's wedding after she disinvited me from it. AITA for not allowing my sister to attend my wedding because of what she did during my engagement. I, 29F, am getting married in a couple of months to the love of my life, Ben 32M. We've been together for almost 6 years now, and our engagement has been one of the happiest times of my life. That being said, there's been a big issue with my sister, Emily, 27F, that I can't seem to shake, and it's gotten to the point where I'm seriously considering not inviting her to my wedding. The problem has to do with something she did during my engagement that has caused a lot of tension between us. To give you some background, I'm very close to my family, especially my sister. We grew up being each other's best friends, even though we're different in a lot of ways. I've always been more reserved and organized, while Emily has always been a bit more wild, free-spirited, and spontaneous. Despite our differences, we've always had each other's backs. When Ben proposed, she was one of the first people I told. I expected her to be excited for me and supportive, but her reaction was, well, let's just say, it wasn't what I expected. When I showed her the ring, she didn't exactly jump for joy. She didn't even say congratulations at first. Instead, she started talking about how the timing wasn't great and maybe I should take more time to think about it. She then went on to mention how she hadn't seen Ben in a while, and maybe I was rushing into things. I was taken aback, but I tried to brush it off as her being nervous about the whole idea of marriage, especially since she's not the type to settle down easily. Over the next few weeks, though, things started to get weird. Emily wasn't exactly supportive of my wedding planning. She didn't offer to help with anything, which I thought was strange considering we'd been so close. I asked her to help me with my bridal shower, and she agreed, but when the day came, she barely showed up. She had an excuse, of course, something about being overwhelmed with work, but I felt hurt. I thought she would have at least made the effort to be there for me, especially since I had always supported her through all of her ups and downs. A few months after the engagement, the real issue started to come to light. Emily had been dating a guy on and off for the past year, and while I'd met him a few times, I didn't think much of him. He was nice enough, but he was pretty laid back, which didn't seem to mesh well with Emily's chaotic energy. Well, apparently, she thought the same about Ben. One night, while we were all at a family dinner, Emily started openly criticizing Ben. She told me that she thought he was too serious for me, that I should be more spontaneous, like her, and that I shouldn't be so quick to get married. This conversation took place in front of our entire family, and I was mortified. I tried to defend Ben and our relationship, but Emily wouldn't let up. It felt like she was attacking everything about him and everything about our relationship. I decided to have a private conversation with her about it afterward. I told her that I didn't appreciate her negativity and that her comments had hurt both me and Ben. She seemed to brush it off, saying she was just looking out for me and that I deserved someone who could keep up with me. I tried to explain that I was happy with Ben and that I didn't need her approval, but she just kept saying she was worried. Fast forward to a few weeks ago when I sent out the wedding invitations. Emily didn't respond to mine for days, so I called her to see if everything was okay. That's when she dropped the bombshell. She said she wasn't sure she would be able to attend because she didn't feel comfortable being around Ben. She claimed that he made her feel awkward and unwelcome ever since that dinner, and that she didn't want to be there if it meant she'd have to pretend to like him for my sake. At this point, I was furious. I told her that if she couldn't put her issues aside for one day to support me, then maybe she shouldn't come at all. She accused me of taking his side over family and said that I was being too controlling and unsympathetic toward her feelings. I told her that I didn't think I was being unreasonable, but it was clear that she wasn't going to back down. We've barely spoken since then. She's told some of our family members that I'm being unfair and that I'm ruining our relationship, but I honestly don't feel like I'm the one in the wrong here. I want my wedding to be a day where I'm surrounded by people who love and support me, and I can't have someone who openly dislikes my fiancé there. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Part of me feels guilty for even considering not inviting her, but another part of me feels like I need to stand my ground. It's my wedding day, and I don't want to be constantly reminded of the tension between us. I've asked some of my close friends what they think, and while most of them agree with me, some have told me that it's family and I should try to work it out before the wedding. So, AITA for not allowing my sister to attend my wedding because of the way she's treated Ben and me during the engagement. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she disinvited me as a bridesmaid. So, I, 29F, have a sister, Emma, 27F, who is getting married in a few months. We've always had a complicated relationship, but I've always tried to be supportive. Emma has always been the golden child in our family. Everything she does is amazing, as she gets praised for even the smallest of achievements. It's something I've learned to live with, but it's definitely created some tension between us over the years. The wedding planning has been a roller coaster. I knew it would be stressful, but I didn't expect things to escalate like this. Emma asked me to be one of her bridesmaids early on, which, honestly, felt like a big deal because, like I mentioned, we've had our issues. I was happy to help her out, though. I'm not one to hold grudges, and I thought maybe this would be an opportunity for us to bond, especially with how important this day was to her. The first red flag came when she started planning the bridal shower. Emma is very particular about how she wants things, which is fine. The problem was when she started demanding things for the shower that didn't seem to fit within the budget we were working with. She insisted on this extravagant theme, which required us to hire a professional decorator, and even made the bridesmaids split the cost of the decor and venue. Now, I'm not broke, but I'm also not wealthy, and I had other financial obligations. The cost of a shower alone was going to drain a significant portion of my savings. I expressed my concerns to Emma, and instead of being understanding, she accused me of not supporting her and making everything about money. I tried to explain that I was more than happy to contribute, but I just couldn't afford to spend hundreds of dollars on a single event. She brushed it off and said that this is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I should be prioritizing her happiness. The whole conversation left me feeling like I was being unreasonable, even though I wasn't asking her to lower her standards, just to be a little more realistic with what we could afford. A few weeks later, the second red flag appeared. Emma started getting more controlling about the wedding planning itself. She wanted to dictate everything from the dress code for the wedding to the specific shade of pink for the napkins. It was exhausting, but again, I went along with it, thinking maybe she was just stressed. Then, the bombshell happened. Last week, Emma called me up and asked me to meet her for coffee. I thought it was to talk about the wedding, but instead, she told me that she was disinviting me as a bridesmaid. I was stunned. She explained that I wasn't involved enough in the planning process and that I hadn't been enthusiastic enough about everything. She said that my lack of energy was bringing down the vibe of the bridal party, and she wanted someone who could match her excitement and be more helpful. I was floored. I had been supportive in every way I could, helping her with dress fittings, doing what I could with the bridal shower, and even taking time off work to help with wedding-related tasks. I never once complained, but somehow my lack of energy wasn't enough for her. At first, I tried to argue with her. I told her that I had been doing my best, and that it hurt that she would do this just because I wasn't as invested in every single detail as she was. But she was firm. She said that this was her special day, and I should respect her wishes. She suggested I still come to the wedding as a guest, but it would be better if I wasn't in the bridal party because I was bringing negative energy. I left that coffee meeting in a daze. I called my mom, who seemed just as shocked as I was, but also said that I should let it go and just accept that Emma was under a lot of stress. My dad, however, was furious. He couldn't understand why Emma would treat me this way. especially after everything I had done for her. But at the end of the day, neither of them could convince me that I wasn't justified in feeling hurt. I decided not to go to the wedding at all. The thought of sitting there, watching her marry someone else, after being disinvited from such a huge part of the celebration, just felt wrong. I wasn't about to force myself to attend an event where I felt unwelcome. Fast forward to now, and the rest of my family is divided. Some people think Emma is being unreasonable and that I've been treated unfairly, while others believe I should just get over it and go to the wedding for the sake of family unity. My mom keeps pressuring me to reconcile with Emma, saying that she's just going through a phase and that I'll regret not being there. But at this point, I feel like Emma has shown me who she truly is. So, AITA for refusing to help with the wedding anymore and for not attending, even though it's causing a rift in the family. I get that it's her big day, but I just can't shake the feeling that she doesn't actually care about me as much as she claims. AITA for telling my best friend that her wedding is a disaster waiting to happen. I, 27F, have been friends with Rachel, 29F, for over a decade. We met in high school, and even though we've had our ups and downs like any long-term friendship, we've always had each other's backs. When Rachel got engaged last year, I was so happy for her. Her fiancé, Ben 30M, is a good guy, but I've never quite connected with him the way she has. Still, he treats her well, so I've always respected their relationship. Now, here's where things get a little complicated. Rachel has always been someone who loves grand gestures. She's the kind of person who plans everything down to the last detail, and she expects everyone else to follow her vision exactly as she's imagined it. Over the past few months, as the wedding planning has ramped up, I've started to notice that she's becoming more and more, difficult. She's been changing her mind constantly about the venue, the guest list, the food, the dress. It's been exhausting for me to watch her go through this cycle of indecision, and I can't even imagine how stressful it must be for her fiancé. But the real issue started when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I wasn't sure about it at first, but after talking to her about it, I agreed. I wanted to be there for her. I figured if she needed a sounding board for all the wedding stress, I'd do my best to help her out. Big mistake. As soon as I agreed to be her maid of honor, it felt like the pressure was on. Rachel started delegating every little detail to me, from the bridesmaids' dresses to the seating chart to the wedding favors. I didn't mind helping out at first, but it quickly became overwhelming. I'm a full-time student and work part-time, so I have a lot on my plate already. On top of that, I'm an introvert, so all the socializing around wedding events, bridal showers, bachelorette parties, and endless group chats was draining. I tried to express my concerns to Rachel. I told her that I wanted to be supportive, but I was feeling stretched thin and could use some help in balancing everything. She brushed me off and said, "This is the biggest day of my life, and I need everyone to step up. It's not about you right now." I get that her wedding is important to her, but it felt like she was putting all the pressure on me and ignoring my needs. The real breaking point came when we started discussing the actual wedding itself. Rachel had decided on a vintage theme with an old-school, formal vibe. She had a vision for everything, from the flowers to the color palette to the music. The problem was her vision was, kind of unrealistic. She had a limited budget and was trying to stretch it as far as possible. She'd picked a venue that was way too expensive for the number of guests they were inviting, and she insisted on hiring a photographer, a videographer, and a band, none of which seemed necessary for the type of event she was planning. I brought this up to her one day, suggesting that maybe she should scale back a little or adjust the guest list to save some money. I told her that while I understood she wanted everything to be perfect, she might want to be a bit more realistic about her budget. Rachel immediately got defensive and said, "I don't need you to tell me how to plan my wedding. I know what I'm doing." But she didn't know what she was doing. It was clear to me that she was getting in over her head. The more I listened to her, the more I realized she was making choices based on what she thought people would expect, rather than what was truly important to her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't stay silent about it. I had to speak up. A few weeks ago, I sat down with her and told her my concerns directly. I said, "Rachel, I love you, and I want your wedding to be everything you've dreamed of. But I'm worried that you're so focused on the aesthetics and the perfect wedding that you're not thinking about the bigger picture. This wedding is going to be a financial nightmare, and I don't want you to regret it later." Rachel was absolutely furious. She said I was trying to ruin her big day and that I didn't understand how much this meant to her. I tried to explain that it wasn't about her day being perfect. It was about making sure she wasn't setting herself and been up for financial strain or emotional stress. But she wouldn't listen. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Rachel has barely talked to me, and when she does, it's always short and cold. She's made it clear that I'm not as involved in the wedding as I used to be, and I can tell she's upset with me. I've tried to reach out and apologize, but she's not interested in hearing it. Now, I'm questioning whether I did the right thing. I know I hurt her, and I never wanted to cause drama. I just didn't want her to make a huge mistake, both financially and emotionally. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder if I should have just stayed out of it. After all, it's her wedding, and she's an adult. Maybe she's just going to have to learn the hard way. So, AITA for telling my best friend that her wedding was a disaster waiting to happen. I really didn't want to be the wedding villain, but now I'm not sure if I crossed the line. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.